Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Let's grab a holdover call from the last segment. Shannon in Missouri. Shannon, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, God bless you, man.
God bless you.
Love the show today. It's good like it is every day.
Thank you very much.
Brian, I got three things to share real quick. Number one, as far as the social versus the economics thing.
Yeah.
It's a very simple fact. We've killed 50 million of our own children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see that my age group, we're going to be retiring in 10, 15 years. You know, you can't do those things socially, kill your own children, and then expect to be blessed financially. You know, when I go to retirement, there's probably not going to be anything for my retirement. Second thing is, our friend Kenny that spoke to you about 10 minutes ago, you know, he's on the show a lot of times, and I admire the man's zeal, okay? He has a very strong drive. But one thing that I would like to share is his drive. How would he like himself to be judged by the very same standard that he puts out on other people? And I'm not calling to condemn him, and I am calling to judge and say, hey, that as your brother in Christ, man, looking at people, how you approach them and how you judge them, that needs to be tempered more so with compassion. I mean, we all come to a point where, you know, in the Bible, the lady that was caught in adultery, we all come to the point that Jesus looks at us and says, hey, I'm calling you to a better life, okay? So you can either put down the rock and not stone, quote unquote, ourselves, or you can go ahead and judge and sometimes do it inappropriately and hurt and wound other people. So I just encourage Kenny, if he's listening out there, man, to judge, but to judge righteously and with love and compassion. That's how we're called to judge as Christians. And the third thing, Oklahoma. Okay, I want to know, Brian, are you and Wesley and some of the other guys doing any golfing down there? Because I heard something about titanium clubs that, you know, spark forest fires.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you guys were traveling down that way.
Oh, man. That really hurt, Shannon. I'm telling you. Well, I'll tell you, I got to tell you, I was on the way to work this week. No, it was last week. I think it's probably Thursday. I'm on the way to work, and this fire truck comes screaming the other direction. I mean, the siren is going off. The lights are flashing. They are in a hurry. And the only thing I could think of is they must have thought that Jeff and Rob and Wesley and I had an early tea time. So anyway, but I'll tell you, Shannon, we have not been in Oklahoma. You cannot pin that one on us.
Hey, God bless you, Brian.
All right. Thank you,
so
Shannon. Appreciate that. You know, and you know, I was thinking the other day, or remarking the other day, that the only verse that people in the Bible, that non-Christians know, is judge not lest you be judged. You know, it used to be back in the day that the only verse that non-Christians knew was God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. Everybody knew that. John 3:16. You put the sign up in the end zone at a football stadium, everybody knows the verse. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believe in him might not perish but have everlasting life. Everybody knew that. Even non-Christians knew that. Now, the only Bible verse they know is judge not lest you be judged. And I think it's important to balance that, because I think they misunderstand what Jesus is saying. Number one, they will quote, non-Christians will quote that to us. Judge not lest you be judged. Well, they've just violated it, their understanding of it, by quoting it to us. They can't quote that verse to us without breaking it, without transgressing it, without disobeying it, without violating it. And either it's a valid standard, in which case they have broken it, or if they think it's an invalid standard, then they've got no business applying it to anybody. But I think they misunderstand what Jesus meant by that, because he says, this is the same Jesus says in John 7:24, do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. So God calls us to judge. Jesus calls us to judge. Just be sure you're not judging based on superficial things. Be sure that your judgment is based on right judgment and based on substance. Now, have time for a couple of calls at the end of this segment. And I want to have you call in reaction to a story about a woman who filmed her own abortion. Let me read a little bit of that story to you, and I want to get your reaction to this. You know, when you hear this story, what's your reaction? A woman who films her own abortion because she wanted to show people it's not a scary thing. This is in Cosmopolitan magazine. She's a New Jersey abortion counselor And she decided to film her own abortion because she wanted to show women it's not scary, in quote. She says this, I found out I was pregnant in November. I had been working at the clinic for about a year. It was my first pregnancy, and full disclosure, I hadn't been using any kind of birth control, which is crazy, I know. I'm a sex educator, and I love talking about birth control. Before this experience, hormonal birth control scared me because of complications I'd heard about from friends, gaining weight, depression, and so forth. There are risks associated with the birth control pill. She knew about them. She didn't want to run those risks. And so she was going basically on the rhythm method. So I tracked my ovulation cycle, and I didn't have any long-term partners. I thought it was okay. But things happen. I wound up pregnant. That's amazing. Like she was a bystander. Things happen. Like she was a passive in all this. Things happen, and I wound up pregnant mysteriously. But she admits it was a consensual decision. And she says, I searched the internet, and I couldn't find a video of an actual surgical procedure in the clinic that focused on the woman's experience. We talk about abortion so much, and yet no one really knows what it actually looks like. So she says, I could have taken the pill when I got pregnant, but I decided I wanted to do the surgical invasive abortion because I wanted to create a positive abortion story. She says, I knew the cameras were in the room during the procedure, but I forgot about them almost immediately. I was focused on staying positive and feeling the love from everyone in the room. I am so lucky that I knew everyone involved, and I was so supported. It's a shame that baby didn't have the same experience. I remember talking to a extended family member one time who had a friend that was pregnant. They were thinking about abortion. And I said to him, man, Mark, somebody has got to be an advocate for that baby. And that's your job in this situation. He wasn't even a Christian, but I just felt like I needed to exhort him. That baby needs an advocate, and that person has got to be you. I am so lucky, she says, that I knew everyone involved and was so supported. I remember breathing and humming through it. Listen to this, like I was giving birth. I know that sounds weird, but to me, this was as birth-like as it could be. It will always be a special memory for me. I still have my sonogram, and if my apartment were to catch fire, it would be the first thing I'd grab. I almost don't even know how to, put into words the reaction to this, how sick and twisted this is. She's aborting her baby, but she says it felt to me like childbirth, which she says is a wonderful thing. So she says these glowing, wonderful things about childbirth. She's so grateful the experience reminded her of childbirth, but she's killing her baby while she's doing this. And she kept the sonogram of the baby that she had put to death, the baby that she had dismembered in her own womb. Something ghoulish and twisted and grotesque about that. Want to get your reaction, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Let's go to David in Tyler, Texas. David, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. I'm a physician. I've practiced critical care medicine for 30 years. And, it's just very discouraging and troubling what you read about a young woman who had this experience and recorded that. I agree with you. Brian, it'd be good if we could have women pay for their own abortions. I think there'd be a fewer of them. When you asked earlier whether society, social issues and economic issues are tied together, I see so many people, young people, that are getting involved early in illicit sexual behaviors, using abortion as contraception, and that is a great cost to society, and they're not paying for their doctor visits. They're not paying for anything. President Obama is enforcing the Affordable Care Act to physicians, and that's going to cost society greatly because physicians are going to drop out. And my colleagues are leaving the practice of medicine because they can't get paid, and they're refusing to accept the poor payment schedule that accompanies the overregulation. So that's my comment about that, Brian, and I appreciate your show.
All right. Thank you, David, very, very much. You know, and David's right. I mean, doctors are leaving the medical practice, and part of it is the reimbursement rate, like for Medicaid, Medicare, and even David saying from some insurance companies is so low that they can't stay in business. They're losing money every time they treat a patient, and nobody can stay in business doing that. I mean, you have a family to feed. You've got salaries to pay. This is not being selfish. You're trying to take care of your family. You're trying to do good to hurting people. But if the reimbursement rate is below what it costs you to keep your practice open, you cannot even do it. It's going to be a tragedy in the coming years. Let's grab a quick call from Ricky in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Ricky, got about 45 seconds. What's on your mind? Go.
Okay, real quick, you mentioned earlier about the prophet. I think that's the reason why the church is backslid in America, because they accept the evangelist, the teacher, the pastor, but they kick out the apostles and the prophets. That's the whole problem. The church in America, they don't, except for a few full gospel churches, 95% of the churches don't believe in the ministry of the prophet, which is to correct the preacher if he goes off the wall, like saying it's okay to be sodomite and still be saved. The reason I said that, what you just described about this lady that had a euphoric experience about killing her little baby in cold blood, that's like describing some child rapist raping a little boy. Something that sick, that perverted, that reprobate. You shouldn't air that on the radio, brother. I'm just letting you know I love you, and I'm judging you with love and compassion. But that woman is so sick, so perverted. That's like describing a pedophile, child rapist raping a little boy on the radio. I mean, that woman is so, she's reprobate and cannot be saved. That's all I got to say about it.
Okay, Ricky. All right. I appreciate your call. And accept your words of rebuke. I think I probably disagree with you. I think we need to have a sober understanding of just exactly where we are at as a culture. We're at a place in our culture a woman could do this and actually feel good about herself and go public with that. God help us. May God forgive us. Focal Point AF for Talk, back after the news.